Hey guys, let's go ahead and go over the answers to these task cards that you were to do for today's at-home assignment. A plant grows is our first one. Maya designed an experiment to answer the following question. How does the amount of water given to a lima bean seed affect how tall it grows? So Maya's experimental plan. Place 3 lima beans in 3 different containers with the same amount of soil. Label the containers A, B, and C. Place the containers on a windowsill so they receive the same amount of light. Provide container A with 1 milliliter of water each day, container B with 5 milliliters of water each day, and container C with 10 milliliters of water each day. Observe, measure, and record growth every day. Your turn. Identify the independent variable. So what is it that we are purposely changing? So it looks like we are purposely changing the amount of water. The amount of water. To identify 2 measurement tools needed for this experiment. Okay, so I know that I am going to be adding water, and so I need to have some type of measuring tool to gather that water. So I'm going to use a graduated cylinder, and then I'm going to have to measure and record the growth, so I need to use a metric ruler. So graduated cylinder and a metric ruler. Identify at least 3 constants or control variables for this experiment. So we need to have the same amount of sunlight, the same size container, the same type of soil. I went on and talked about how they put the same amount of soil in, but we need to have the same type of soil. We need to have the same seed, and we need to have the same type of water that is being added. Write a hypothesis for this experiment. Remember, a hypothesis is going to be an educated guess. So if 5 milliliters of water is added each day, the lima bean will grow taller. I'm going to have to add that in there. Then the lima bean will grow taller because plants need the correct amount of water to grow. So with the experiment, I see that Maya is going to use 1 milliliter, 5 milliliters, and 10 milliliters of water. So I'm thinking maybe 1 milliliter is not going to be enough, and that perhaps 10 milliliters is going to be too much. So 5 milliliters is what I'm going to go with, that is going to be the perfect amount of water for the plant to grow the tallest. How can Maya increase the reliability of her results? Well, in this experiment here, she simply did 1 trial. We can see that right here. Just 1 trial. So that is going to be a way that she can improve her results, and reliability is that we are going to perform 2 more trials. That's going to be, can we reproduce the same results? Do we have reliable results? Alrighty, so make sure you have all of that correct on your page. All right, so let's take a look at the second scenario. Joseph designed an experiment to test the following question. Does sun heat fresh water and salt water at the same rate? So here's Joseph's plan. He's going to dissolve 3 grams of salt in a beaker with 200 milliliters of water. We're going to pour 200 milliliters of water into a second beaker. Place a thermometer in each beaker to make sure the temperatures of both the fresh water and salt water are the same to start with. And then we're going to place both beakers outside. Every 5 minutes, record the temperature of the water in both beakers. All right, so identify 2 measurement tools that are needed for this experiment. All right, I see that Joseph is going to dissolve 3 grams of salt, and gram is a mass, and we're going to use a triple beam balance to figure that out. And we're going to have 200 mils of water, so that is going to be a beaker. And then we are going to be measuring our temperature, so we need a thermometer. So, all right, we have a beaker, a triple beam balance, and a thermometer. So make sure you have that correct. Should Joseph place one beaker in the shade and one beaker in the sunlight? What do you think about that? You know, his question is, does the sun affect the heat, the fresh water and salt water at the same rate? So you can't place one in the shade and one in the sun because you're testing the sun. Okay, so no, both beakers need to be in the sunlight because only one variable can be changed in an experiment. All right, so I need to do a little editing. Can be changed in an experiment. So what we're purposely changing in this case is that we've got one beaker that has just plain fresh water in it, and we have another beaker that has the same water but just salt added to it. So that's the variable. So we can't have it be one in the shade and one in the sun also, because that would be a second variable. Can't do that. So identify the independent variable in this experiment. So between these two experimental groups, between these two groups, what is the one thing that we are purposely changing? And that is going to be the type of water. So is it fresh water or is it salt water? Identify the dependent variable. So what is it that we are going to be measuring? We are going to be measuring the water temperature. Write a hypothesis for this experiment. So which one do I think is going to heat does salt water, is that going to affect, does the presence of salt in that water going to affect the rate in which the sun heats it up? So of course I needed to do a little bit of research because that's part of the experimental design process. So my hypothesis is if salt is added to water, then it will heat faster because there are more molecules in it. So if there's more molecules to move around, it will heat up faster. That's my hypothesis. So let's take a look at this very last one. Ants are sweet. Kaylee wants to conduct an experiment to determine whether ants prefer sugar or artificial sweetener. She thinks that ants prefer real sugar, but she isn't sure. She sets up the following experiment. In a closed container, now we need to have that closed so that they do not crawl out. In a closed container, put 2 grams of sugar in a small container in one corner, and then 2 grams of an artificial sweetener in a small container in the opposite corner. Place 3 ants in the middle of the container. Every 30 minutes for 1 hour, record how many ants are in each container. Now I'm going to refer to the sugar or the artificial sweetener as simply sweet material. Okay, so what is the independent variable? So what is it that we are purposely changing here? And it's going to be the type of sweet material. So is it sugar or is it artificial sweetener? Those are our 2 choices here. What is the dependent variable? So what is it that we are going to try to measure here? We're going to measure how many ants are at each sweet material. Identify 2 constant or controlled variables in this experiment. So why do we have to keep the same here? Well, we need to have the same type of ants. We need to have where they are dropped in this container, that needs to be in the same location where the ants are placed in the container, like right in the middle, not at one end or the other. That would maybe skew the results. And the amount of each sweet material used. You need to keep that all the same. So in each space, name one thing that Kaylee can do to improve the experiments. Okay, so we have 2 grams of sugar, 2 grams of artificial sweetener. We have 3 ants. We are testing every 30 minutes for 1 hour. So let's see, can we improve that a little bit? I think we can. Okay, so we could use more ants because 3, that's really not a very large group. So adding more ants, like maybe 10 ants into the mix. We could check and record the data every 30 minutes for 5 hours instead of just for 1 hour, because if we just do it for 1 hour, then we've really just checked 2 times. We've checked at that half-hour mark, and we've checked again at a 1 hour mark, at that 60-minute mark. So that's really just 2 data points. Might not be enough. So extending that to a 5-hour period would, greatly improve your numbers, many more data points, and you would have a better idea. You also could add a little bit more of each one of those sweet material. We could add, what did we add originally? We originally added 2 grams. Could you add 3 grams? Could you add a little bit more? But definitely adding more ants to the mix, that would give you more data, more information, and then checking it a little bit more often, or actually checking it for a little bit longer than just 2 times, like the 1 hour. Okay, so what I need you to do is I need you to have all of this filled out correctly. Okay, make sure that you've added all the information. I apologize for my typos there. I was typing pretty quick. And just make sure that you are comfortable with these 3 scenarios, okay? All right, have a good rest of your day.